Hi, everyone. I'm really happy to be here today. Thank you for joining us in another one of our In Conversation series. This is part of our ongoing series here at Artlogic, where we bring together voices from across the art world. We share insights, strategies, and experiences to really help galleries and artists thrive. My name is Angela Roldan. I'm a team lead here at Artlogic, and I'll be your moderator for today's session. Before we dive in, I just wanted to share a couple of housekeeping notes, if possible. We will be taking live questions for our speakers today, so please feel free to drop any questions or thoughts in the chat, and then we'll leave time at the end to go through as many as we can. We want this to be dynamic. This session is also being recorded, so if you do need to step out at any point, feel free to go. Don't worry, we'll send you the full recording once we finish, and you can listen to it in your own time. So once that's clear, on today's topic, as you know, it's nurturing loyalty, how to keep collectors coming back, something extremely important in this day and age and with the industry. I think it's something that has become a lot more relevant nowadays with the galleries, in the galleries landscape. In fact, one of the key insights from our recently published Artlogic Gallery Report is that 67.4% of gallery revenue in 2024 comes from existing collectors. Now, this statistic really underscores just how essential long-term client relationships are for galleries' growth and resilience. If you'd like to read the full report, we've dropped a link in the chat right now, so you can have a look at it, or you can find it on our site. So whether you're starting to, just build your collector base, or you're looking to strengthen relationships, or, you're in a whole different journey, today's discussion will offer valuable strategies and real-world insights to support you within that journey. With that in mind, I'm thrilled to be joined by two outstanding speakers. We have Patricia Ruiz-Healy, owner and director of Ruiz-Healy Fine Art. Hi, Patricia. She brings nearly 2 decades of experience leading a gallery that champions Latinx and Latin American artists, with locations in San Antonio, Texas, and New York. Thanks for joining us, Patricia. And we have Soojin Patterson. She's a managing director of Upsilon Gallery, where she oversees global operations across New York, London, and soon Milan. So expanding little by little. Soojin draws on a unique blend of curatorial experience and digital strategy expertise to engage with collectors across platforms and markets. And she's also an old colleague of mine, so it's great to be reconnected here. So without further ado, I'd love to jump straight in. Patricia, Soojin, that works for you guys?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Lovely.
So let's start from the beginning. To kick us off, I'd love it if you could both share why you think client retention and loyalty has become more critical in today's gallery landscape. So maybe you can start us off, Soojin.
Sure. Patricia, that's okay. I mean, you said it first, the data and metrics support the fact that collectors are coming back over and over again. Look, I think we're kind of in the age of, AI, Google, ChatGPT, Instagram. And so there's always going to be discovery online, and there's a lot of information out there. But I would say that information doesn't necessarily translate to understanding and connectivity. And so even in the media saturated industry, we still want to connect with people. We still have those emotional connections to art. And so that's really why connecting with collectors on unique levels is very key. Those are always going to be our repeat buyers. Those are going to be the gist of the collectors that we have those relationships with. We're building out interest and stories on our artist and kind of sharing with them bits and pieces of the successes of our artists along the way. And I think that really generates that the relationship that continues coming back over and over again. So some of my first thoughts.
Completely agree with you. And it's also, really translating that from a buyer to a collector, which is key as well for gallery success. Patricia, maybe you can share a bit more from your end.
I totally agree with what Soojin just mentioned. In this, especially in very uncertain times, your established clients, collectors, they're really your bread and butter for, to keep the gallery going. The importance of sharing what is news, regarding the artist's work, an exhibition in a museum, an acquisition. You just need to always be sharing those important news with your collector clients, keep them engaged, reaching out, how are you, just sometimes a text, sometimes an email. Some now, with Instagram, the DM has become a very effective way of just saying hi and being present, besides everything else that, most galleries do, of sending email, specific email previews and email blast. I think the human touch, the sending a written note is also important. Having coffee, just talking in general about what is going on, and always think about that I consider myself to be in a very noble profession because we are the bridge between artists and collectors. And I always try to put myself on the collector's shoes, so to speak, because I started as a collector and then I become a student and, continue my studies, etc. So because there is a fine line between, reaching out to your clients, collectors, and then becoming annoyed because because too much communication. So that's always what I try to keep on mind and share with my team.
Yeah, I think I'm sorry, I just wanted to continue too, because Patricia, you've really grown over the years as well, and that's taken quite some time to nurture those clusters from all the way from the beginning. And so a lot of what we're trying to do is build those relationships for like long-term, kind of investing in the gallery and investing in the artists. And I know a lot of people shy away from the term investing, but let's be honest, we have a lot of people that are looking at their portfolios and they want to know like where is something that's purposeful. And you've really built out those and nurtured those long-term relationships, people that want to support you and support the gallery.
Yes,
Same with
thank
us.
you, because thank you. Especially, I started the gallery space in New York, in San Antonio, Texas, almost 20 years ago. I think is I feel like when they're helping the gallery or supporting the gallery, they're also supporting an ecosystem. It's not just me and the gallery and the artists that we represent. It's also a very important role in this area of the world where there are not too many galleries, so to speak. And I have stuck around for almost 20 years. And, this is where we moved from Mexico City, and my girls were born here. They were raised here. We are Tejanos, we're Texans. And of course, we're also international because we come from Mexico, and now my daughters live in New York City. We are in a way, the ground for us is Texas, and then, of course, looking out. And that's why we decided to open New York City, the New York City space, because we wanted to bring attention to amazing artists that are from this part of the world. It's because we work a lot closely with curators, museums.
Yeah. Like you're talking about it sounds like you're talking about a journey, and I think that's really key too, because even the collectors that I met really early in my career as an assistant, those are people that I continue to build out relationships with and bring them in at different levels. Some of our exhibitions are going to be different than our main showcasing of like color field artists. And so sometimes that's an opportunity where I remember, oh my gosh, they really enjoyed this style of art or that.
Yeah.
So you're telling a story throughout the journey of your career.
Well, thank you.
I think that's key. Both of you are sharing, and a lot of it is, really leading in that journey with empathy. Patricia, you shared how you understand your buyers and like the area. Soojin, how you really can identify a client from the beginning. So maybe you can share a bit more about some example of a long-term client relationship that you built from the beginning, Patricia, and how what you were doing contributed to its success.
I think it's just paying attention to what clients, when since the beginning, they were coming to the openings, and then we started engaging and I started talking, and hearing about what they were looking for. And, and there is, it's really a journey about clients change, they change their style or the taste. And we are here to kind of give them options, because some people say, now I'm in a different situation, and it's about paying attention to those kind of behavioral clues, so to speak, and just having a very trying to have conversations and having deep conversations. And I love to invite some of my clients, collectors, to go and see a museum show, or to go to galleries, or to go. I love walking the halls in an art fair and just seeing the reactions, and because sometimes those spontaneous news that the client collector gives you is, totally change sometimes your perspective. There is a lot of information that is shared that way. Not everything is, by the book, of course. So it's just paying attention to that. And I think Artlogic has been amazing for us, because we were able to add that information on the database. Like, this collector only likes prints, or this collector only likes this artist, or only the Mexican 20th century school. Because you don't want to bother everyone with different things that they are not in tune. So that has been my experience.
That makes sense, and I think, Soojin, you have some really, like, you've spoken about identifying those collector behaviors, especially early on in their collecting journey, if you want to call it. Maybe you can tell us a bit more about that, and how's that been for you, and how you really identify the potential in these key collectors.
Yeah, Angela, we come from data backgrounds, working at ArtNet and Artsy and Artlogic and all these things. So data is just going to naturally be a part of our reading on what collectors are. Yeah, we're not spamming all collectors, but we're actually personalizing that. But what was helpful for us, at least at Upsilon, is that we have a pretty strong identity of the base of artists that we primarily work with. And given that we're like focused on color field and the artists from that 60s and 70s era and those that were influenced by those artists, we tend to get a certain clientele that really is interested in that historical focus of that era, and just really have a passion for it, because they believe that that was a really important generation of artists. So what's been really fun in terms of long-term collecting is really connecting with some of those buyers, and then building out that relationship in a community setting where they're bringing their family members along. And one of my favorite collectors is just wonderful. He's very decisive, he's kind, but he knows what he wants. And now he's really getting his son interested in art collecting. And so they both get this opportunity to share in that adventure together, kind of talk through. And his son obviously collects at a different level. He might collect the prints or the smaller works, or the more emerging prices, but at some of those artists that are really growing in the same capacity as his father's enjoying. And so those are collectors that they're not just looking for the next like Warhol or Banksy, but they're actually looking at artists that are meaningful and impactful, and then sharing that passion with their kids. And like I think I shared before, and you might have shared, this is the generational wealth transfer. So these are going to be collectors that are now in the next 10 years are going to be collecting in the higher and higher and higher price point. So I think it's fun to see that, like, there's that transfer of passion between generations, and then there's also just like the bringing along and like sharing of like that the commitment to supporting artists. So it's just one story.
No, it's a great story. It's a great story, and I think it's very important nowadays and always. And I think I'm very lucky that my daughter, we're partners in the gallery, especially in New York, in both places.
Yeah.
And she brings another perspective, another demographic. I mean, we didn't start it this way, like being so strategic, but it has kind of developed in a very organic way, and it has been really wonderful to see, who comes along on the right, so to speak, of collecting art, and I love to share also the one of the emphasis of the gallery is to bring to like overlooked artists that were there at the same time of more famous artists, so to speak, and you know, they were there in museum shows, and for some reasons they didn't have gallery representation, but they continue to work, and they have brilliant careers, and careers in the sense of working and doing museum shows, but not so much commercially. So that's one of the columns of the gallery, and really kind of empowers, you know, not just me and my daughter, but my whole team, because we're trying to make history here. I mean, we are, in a way, trying to, you know, put our little grain of salt, not salt, sand, sorry, on our history. Yes.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
beautiful
and
part
then
about what we do, because there's this redemptive quality that you have, that you're able to redeem some of these other artists' stories, or redeem a passion, or redeem somebody's experience in a certain era or genre. And so I think that's what gives people a passion for something, is feeling like they're part of something bigger, and they're part of something that's beautiful and bigger.
Yes, and that, you know, that's the passion that we communicate to our collectors and clients, and having the trust of the artists, of us representing their work. That's what keep clients, collectors coming back to the gallery, and coming back to support the artists, to support the gallery program, to support the ecosystem, so to speak.
and it must be so rewarding for both of you. You're sort of building history from two ends, both
Yeah.
from the
Yeah.
collector side, especially as you're building up this new generation. You know, I love your story working, you know, with the father and son couple, if you want to put it. Patricia, you know, bringing up artists that were overlooked. You're working these two in parallel, essentially. So it must be incredibly rewarding that you're setting the scene.
Especially
I think sometimes
when a museum acquires the work of an artist, that's like, oh, the best.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
I think sometimes people forget, you know, that sort of background work that you're doing, but it's really the ultimate goal, you know. And I think I always think about this, you know, this is you know, you're not worried about, this is why that nurturing of loyalty is so important. You're not here to collect fires, you're here to build collectors, you know.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
so going back a bit to, you know, how you're really managing these relationships, building them. You both touched on something, which is like, it's important to be to have personalization. You know, you don't want to stand people, or, you know, Patricia, you had mentioned in one of our previous calls, like, if someone's interested in 20th century Mexican art, you don't want to, you know, you really want to be personalized with how you address them. So with smaller teams, like both of yours, I mean, how do you balance both personalization and scalability? Because they're sort of counterintuitive. Scalability, you want to grow and get as many. Personalization, it's much more niche. How do you balance that?
Let's see. We just keep going. I mean, I just you know, especially, you know, in uncertain times, you don't want to grow the team too much, because it becomes also, besides expenses, is also another, you know, another layer of handling more people. I think it's just remind me, for me, is like reminding myself, why am I doing this? I mean, why did I study art history? Why did I get in my PhD? Why do I work with the artists that we work with? And we don't get new artists all the time. We select a very, you know, small number of artists that we work closely with. So I just think it's just and I think with especially the relationship with the curators for us is like another collector, really. I mean, and they I think one of the successes of the gallery has been all the background information that we have on the website, all the, you know, publications we do with published catalogs, and you can download the catalog. You don't have to buy it. You can download it. All the information is there. So I think it's just keep doing what you're doing, and doing selectively art fairs, because, as you know, art fairs, they're really great for being there to expose the artist to another audience. But you have to be selective, because it's not just money, it's also time away from other things. That's how we handle most of the activities at the gallery.
I might kind of approach this in a different angle, just because I know right now we're scaling really quickly. Almost is hard enough for me to keep my breath. And I helps me. I actually think the beautiful part is feeling like I can't do it all. So it really helps me to be human and realize like I'm not God, God's God. And I have to recognize a team. And the good thing is we've recognized like, okay, we have to actually be very particular about the sales team that we have, because we have to generate an atmosphere of trust and transparency. And so, so that's some of the growing pains of a startup gallery, like expanding out. And now we actually have a solid team of people that are wonderful to work with, but are actually very savvy in their own key parts of their field. So I work with Simon Wills, who has a whole background in finance and investments, and I'm working at Christie's. And so I can kind of utilize his niche connections there. And, we have team members over in London that have worked in luxury goods, that have worked in other major galleries. And so it's helpful for me to realize like I can't do it all. I have to actually delegate. And then I have to actually recognize like the talents, individual talents of the rest of my team. And that's actually helped me because then I can focus in on the clients that I know really need my focus and attention, and be able to utilize my tools to make sure that I'm managing them well. It's weird because AI has actually made us feel like we can do everything, but I still can't. And I love that, because I think that that's what community is about, is building out a very transparent experience within the gallery space. So not every client is our key client, but they are important. And so we're delegating those out in the way that prioritization is manageable. And recognizing that everything inbound isn't urgent. So I don't have to answer every email. I will get to them eventually. but then I can delegate that out to another person that I can trust to not drop that. So that takes time, and it takes savvy of hiring, though. Yeah, what were you gonna say?
I think I fully agree with you, and I think one of the hardest things is learning what to say no to, and what you can sort of. But I also really like that point about leaning in on your colleagues and different experiences, and I think that also made me think what creative, or let's say non-traditional outreach methods have worked well for you beyond the standard preview email, or here's a PDF, or here's an invite. What has worked for you in your experience?
I'll let Patricia. I'll leave that to the floor for Patricia in just a moment. But I will say that some of them really helpful tools that we've used is kind of recognizing alignments and like overlaps. So some of our collectors that are really interested in, let's say, like Helen Frankenthaler, we really thought that might work well as we were promoting Francine Tint. So this is a mid-career artist that's been established, been around for quite a while, has her own following, but it was an opportunity where we could overlap the interests, since they both studied under the same advisors, under Clement Greenberg and Jackson Pollock and all the major Abex artists. And Frankenthaler is really growing in her season. And so we already have collectors that are interested in that. And then we were able to recognize some of these collectors actually might be interested in works that are at a different price point for now, but that are also with the same passion, similar philosophy and theory and visual qualities as well. And that's been really helpful, because that's actually helped our collectors recognize a whole nother level of artists that are maybe the next generation. But I know you've done quite a bit, Patricia, in that overlap too.
Yes, that overlap is I think the different generations that where you're talking about, Frankenthaler, the big artists, but there were a lot of artists working with her along, and they had been overlooked.
Yeah.
I love that, and because I think it's our responsibility to bring those artists to light, to bring it to the attention of clients, collectors, because it's important. It's part of history, right? In something that I can contribute to this conversation also is, like, for example, when I started the gallery almost 20 years ago, my clients, my friends, they wanted paintings. They didn't want anything behind glass for some strange reason. because they were not exposed. But I stuck to my guns. For example, I studied for my master's in art history. I studied the work of Tina Modotti and Anna Mendieta, so photography-based artists. So for photography for me was very important. And I started working with Graciela Iturbide since before opening the gallery, and I wanted to bring attention to photography to my clients, to say this is important, this is part of your collection. I mean, the photography is going to talk to your paintings and to all the works that you have in your home. So at the beginning, I didn't sell one photograph. But I stuck to my guns, and and we were very proud that we continue to work with Graciela Iturbide since 2006. We're giving her a solo show in November in New York City, and we're just very honored to be working with her. And of course, after starting working with her, she won the Hasselblad like 2-3 years ago, and she has won so many different international big awards. She just won the Asturias Princess Award, that is also a very renowned award. So things that contribute to this belief on her work. When I was starting as a young gallerist. Well, I wasn't too young because I was a mom already, but I started my road on the gallery business is very unconventional, because I was a mom, I was a collector, I was an art historian, and I just saw a need for artists to be represented in San Antonio, and that's how I started by appointment only, and I just kept going. But I never worked in a gallery, but I am very lucky because, for example, Patty, my daughter, she worked at Sotheby's for 5 years on the Latin American department. So she brings a lot of that luxury market that, I lived it through being a collector, but it's nice to have somebody that was behind the desk, so to speak. So it just fits the whole team in a very appropriate way.
Thinking about one other way that we've done maybe a non-traditional approach. Marcelo Zimler, who's the owner and founder of Upsilon Gallery, when he launched his space in London, it's just in a gorgeous space in Mayfair. So it's right on the corner with all these windows, and everybody wants to be there. And so he's really invested in like this community building opportunity where we're inviting hedge funds and firms that are in the neighborhood into the gallery space for special, like, really unique events. Like I think they had like a Royals event or something like that, where they were showing like like Warhols or something like that, and they brought in British royalty. But how fun was that? And so at first I think I was a little bit hesitant because we're on the 3rd floor of a gallery space on 67th Street, but it's on the Upper East Side. But we tried that same model here at our gallery in New York, and that's also been really fun and a way that we're generating like that new next generation of collectors that are kind of more experiential. And so we're starting to get a slow drip of those turning into collectors. And I think that's just it's going to be one of those long-term nurture things, but creating events and like building out opportunities, experiential ways that collectors are like connecting with the gallery and with the artists. That just seems like a beautiful way to build community around that. So
yes, and I think it's also such a good opportunity for clients, collectors to meet the artists, especially like an openings or a special talk, because you want that engagement. I think and some clients, collectors, they really appreciate meeting the artist, talking to the artist, getting to know him or her. And that's why openings are important. I mean, some galleries are stopping to do that sometimes, and I think that's a mistake. And I think the talks on Saturdays are fantastic. Even it's sometimes, of course, you don't sell sometimes anything in a talk, but you are sharing the knowledge and you are creating this community of artists meeting collectors, clients, or curators, or whatnot.
Absolutely, and I think I have to, fully agree with both of you. There's a saying, you don't reap what you sow today. It's a nurturing process. Exactly. And I think, I can attest. I haven't been lucky enough to visit your space, Patricia, but I can attest for Upsilon's space in London. It's beautiful, incredible, very well located. You also had, I remember during London Gallery Weekend last month, an amazing exhibition that had such a great variety of artists, overlooked and emerging. It was a group show. And just the way that you approached it as a business, and it very welcoming. And I think sometimes as an industry, we shy away from the term educating, but I think it is important to sort of educate and nurture those buyers who then become collectors. And no one just becomes no one's born a collector.
Yes, yes, and we do wall tags in the gallery. We really try to do treat it like almost like a museum, because you want to walk in, and if you want to know more about the artist, it's nice to have a little piece of information, a paragraph of who's the artist and what this work is about, and that starts a conversation. I mean, of course, there are a lot of galleries, they don't like any labels, they want everything white and clean. But I just follow my passion and what I want to share. And I think I have an amazing team that help us with all those descriptions, all that narrative that is so important, because you can see painting and just say, well, oh, nice colors, but you don't know the background, so you want to know share what is, because everybody's so busy, so you need to be able to read something in a few minutes and interesting, or something that caught your eye, then you get into more getting more information.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with you. I think with this in mind, I think I'd love to jump into the question segment. We've had so many pop in, and there's one that I'd love to start with, which I think is, sort of, it's a nice close up to our discussion, and then open to our panel's questions. So obviously, thank you both of you for this panel. It's been really insightful. The question we have here is anonymous, and they say, this has been so helpful, especially as someone who just founded a gallery a few months ago. My question is, how can a new gallery start to build long-term collectors from scratch?
I would say that you focus on a holistic community and not just like the potential buyers, because as a business, like I've actually connected a lot over the years. I actually worked more with galleries than I did with collectors in the middle of my career. And I've used that so much lately to just give me advice or give me suggestions or help me source. And so I'm not just focusing on the collectors or the potential buyers, but I'm actually focusing on everybody within the community that's going to actually bring an interesting asset, or they're interested in like others' well-being instead of just like what they can get from somebody. I mean, I'm an introvert, honestly, but in New York, you learn how to play it. And I'm not a big networker, but I do genuinely love it. I think people are interesting, and genuine people are really valuable. So I don't just hone in and focus on the people that look like they might be undercover millionaires and billionaires.
Yes, I like to take the same approach, because you can never know. You can never really know. But I think having a nice, meaningful conversation, even if it's a short conversation with anyone that works in the gallery, maybe that person is going to recommend a friend that is looking for art. So the word of mouth recommendation is like the strongest thing that you can have. So I think Spain is giving respect to anyone that walks into the gallery, or anyone that sends you an email. Respond properly, respond promptly. This is a 24/7 kind of business. I mean, people, and I love it when people say, "Oh, thank you so much for responding so promptly." And I say, I feel like, oh my gosh. So some people don't respond promptly, I guess.
I mean, I think there's that bad reputation in the art world of you go into a gallery and nobody looks up or says hi or anything.
No, yeah, exactly. No, you just have to really welcome anyone. Maybe is my Mexican upbringing, my Texas time, but it's about getting up on your chair and saying hello and thank you for coming. How do you know about the gallery? And and if they don't talk, that's fine.
I love that, and I think that's not just a sort of a lesson for owning a gallery, but in life, really. So I love that from both. Um, this one's very interesting. Again, anonymous. What approaches or strategies would you recommend for successfully introducing emerging artists to collectors who traditionally focus on established names?
I think maybe by finding connections between the other emerging artists with their more established artists. Sometimes it can be they attended the same school, but 40 years apart, or the medium. Is it the medium that there is maybe a correspondence? You have to try to find connections. Is the connection word is very, very important in my case, in my opinion.
Emerging artists are very difficult. It's like dating. There's a ton of people out there, so matching that is kind of a miracle. But it really helps when you have an artist that you believe in, but that is actually really good, that has a historical context to their work, that isn't just kind of following a trend, but that is actually based in something that's meaningful. And so when you believe that, and when you discover that, and then you believe that, it's a little bit easier. I guess I don't think of my conversations as much as selling, is just like sharing and being excited about. So you have that crossover, obviously, but then you got to kind of introduce them in a way that is interesting to the collector that's purchasing all of these other kinds of artists. And so having that actual focus, but then also being open to that. I mean, emerging artists are really well purchased by emerging collectors that are excited to be excited about something too. So I guess that also expanding that network.
Yeah, I think, again, personalization in a way.
Yes.
This one again is interesting, and this one's going to be, what is your advice for nurturing loyalty with collectors as a digital first gallery?
At a digital
first. So I'm assuming the person means, maybe a business that doesn't have a physical location.
That's actually how
strategy?
Upsilon started. And this is how I met Marcelo Zimler, who's the founder of the gallery. It was basically an online only gallery for a few years. And I had the pleasure of kind of working with him on his digital strategy 5-6 years back. So a lot of those initial collectors that he still works with, that I now still work with on a regular basis, were people that he discovered online years back. Was just very quick and efficient, was transparent, gave them a really good experience, and also shared his expertise. He's surprisingly outside of the art industry, from his earlier academic background. I think he studied in mathematics and engineering and finance, and then went back to school for fine art. So he just has a broad base of knowledge and wisdom and awareness, even for somebody so young. But I think that really draws collectors because of kind of his multifaceted personality as well. So you kind of hook them with but the things that are interesting about you. You have to be a dimensional person. You can't just be wholly focused on one artist and one person at one time. But what are the restaurants that you like to enjoy? What is the music? What is the video and things like that? All those different ways that you're kind of expanding the person that they're wanting to partner with.
Yeah, I think, as you say, really honing in on what you want to connect with that buyer. This was interesting. I think as well, communicating with existing clients. How often is too often? Patricia, maybe you have some thoughts on that. How do you balance that? As you said earlier, you don't want to pester them, but you want to communicate.
Well, I think yes, you want to communicate, especially if they are invested in a certain artist. You want to always, of course, share before ahead, we just placed an important work of this artist in this museum. A solo show is coming. I'm gonna keep you informed. So sometimes it's just giving the information and then see the reaction, so you can kind of follow up, So I think first is just sharing without, oh, and here's a checklist, right? I mean, we just have to take you have to take one thing at a time and see the reaction of the response from the client and how engaged they are. You know, because everybody's busy, so you have to respect that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think when it comes to, it's kind of a personalization, right? And so every person is different. And that's really hard to read, especially when you're trying to reach out to like thousands of people on the collector base. So I always, I had really great training at Artsy where we train people on like responding to collector inquiry. And when it comes to online, like consistency is really key, and not being afraid of sharing when you haven't heard anything back, because a lot of people are busy and sometimes they do miss things, or sometimes they see something and they just aren't responding. They haven't had the time to respond, but they are seeing things. And what I've noticed here specifically at the gallery is we have like really fun news on our artists, and it's really exciting to actually personally share that with people that were interested in those artists. So I have no problem, like I might have sent out a newsletter, but when there's a New York Times editorial about our artists, like I'm going to send that out right away, because I know that they would want that information. Even if they're not responding back, I'm not going to assume that they are annoyed with me when they tell me like, okay, please take me off the list, of course. Hopefully, and I very rarely get that, surprisingly. So a lot of times it kind of feels like a one-way conversation, but online, especially, and through email, like I just have to assume, like, of course, my clients want to know about this. This is important for them to know, or but that means having good content to share or something interesting to share. So I'm not going to reach out to them with just like, hey, how's it going?
Yes.
So.
And I think that's again so important, and that's again how you build that loyalty, because they come to know you as a resource, and and you're going to keep them up to date, and especially as you say, they're buying into an artist, into a journey. They're not just buying into an aesthetic piece of canvas that's going to go with their sofa.
And especially for some of those collectors that like maybe they purchased like an Osvaldo Mariscati painting, I love reaching back out to them and being like, oh my God, another smashing auction, because it's exciting for them, because then it just like shows them, yes, I was savvy in my collecting, but it also actually has brought back people to buy multiple other works because they want to, that's reinforced their interest. So it's just fun when you have, it's fun when you have fun things to share. So a lot of that's working with the artists that actually have momentum behind them and they're willing to participate in that momentum too. Right.
Yeah, and something that I have shared and has had a very positive impact on our business is that when it's quieter time, I just put together like, for insurance purposes, you bought this work in 2007, now price is X. My clients really appreciate that. They say, oh my goodness, I didn't realize that. I say, you should update your insurance. You want to probably hire a professional art appraiser, but this is the market value of the work right now. And things like that, thinking outside the box sometimes is very important.
Coming back with that hook.
Yeah, we're in a creative industry after all.
Definitely. I love that. Tell me again, another question from the audience, and it's for you both. How do you keep offering artworks to existing clients that already have everything from your portfolio? In this specific case, what would you advise to keep them close and interested?
I like it's a specific case.
Sorry, what?
I guess I was looking for a little bit more clarity because it sounded like a very specific case, but could you go ahead?
No, I think it was just, sharing, a new museum acquisition, sharing what is going on with the exhibitions, or doing a collaboration with another gallery in Berlin, for example, things like that. Just keeping engaged, or just keeping them aware. I mean, even a collector, even if he has everything, sometimes they want to change things around. Maybe they want to give some works away to a museum because that work doesn't longer work with their philosophy or their taste or their situation. And we help clients with that. They don't want to just, sell it at auction, or sometimes they want to give it to a museum. And that gives us an opportunity, a free wall. So it's just, things like that.
That's such a good point. I'm remembering that for every client like a collector installation, I realized that collecting might be like tattoos. Once you get one, you got to get more and more and more. And I don't think I've ever seen a collector that's like, oh yeah, all my walls are full and that's it. I think a lot of times at the right price point and the right piece, they'll still go for it.
Exactly. Yes.
Well, and I guess that's also a bit of what your role is as tastemakers, if you want to call it. You really, there's no end or limit to the collection. You are building up that taste and that interest, and that's your role. And as you say, Patricia or Soojin, like, hey, this artist did this, or this, have a look at that. You're building that interest up.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Let's go with maybe let's say a quick response one. What's your top piece of advice for a young art consultancy about how to build a client list who trusts her and becomes loyal to her? So your number one piece of advice.
I would say my number one thing is to apprentice or work under somebody that's really successful that you admire. Because I don't feel confident in my career until I've had at least 10 years under me. And I don't know if I feel 100% confident, but I attribute so much of my awareness and savvy to a lot of the other people that I've worked under and with. So there's been several galleries that I worked with before I even started working at ArtNet. And then I had some beautiful mentors over at ArtNet and Artsy. And I think, it's hard to just start out unless you're born into money and wealth and family, which a lot of people are. Good for you, go for that. But if you're not, you kind of need a little bit to grow into that industry by exposure. And so a lot of the most successful dealers that I've ever talked to first were gallerists under other major galleries, and then they launch off on their own, which really makes sense. So
yeah, I love that. Lean on and learn. Be humble.
And to be lucky enough to be mentored by someone is very, very good.
Yeah. Which also means you have to mentor other people too. So one
important.
arm on both of us. Yeah. But even if you're in the middle of your career and you're still and you're launching your business, you still can collaborate. So we collaborate with so many other advisors. And I think there was an editorial out about the value of art advisory and how the art market would just blow up if it didn't have advisors. And so there's so much to be said about just collaborating with other people and then sharing experiences and questions and what's your shipper, or what where did you know that this framer could do this too? And so
yeah,
I know that's more on the coordination side, but that all plays into how successfully can you get a sale across the finish line and into the collector's hands. So
yeah, sharing resources is so important because it's you're sharing resources with regarding art shuttle companies, so framers. So, there is
absolutely. I
think the more generous we are, the better it's gonna be. It's karma at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think for a person that wants to start as an advisory, I think the mentoring aspect is the number one. I agree. And the other one is just to be very, read a lot, read about what's going on, read our news, read our net, read our forum, go and get yourself a membership in any museum in your city. Go to talks, go to hear curators. And so it's all because it's an industry, it's
definitely
interior designers, advisors, curators, conversations. It's on and on and on, and that's what is so amazing. You can never get bored. I feel like.
No, in fact, I think it's so much of it, and recapping with both, it's just that knowledge sharing that we need to do both ways. And I couldn't agree with both of you more. But on that note, we do have to wrap it up. Even though you guys are being incredibly generous, and I wish we could continue this.
Thank you. I was just thinking that since you're based in London, Angela, I can misquote Orson Welles and Oscar Wilde, and say that if you're bored of art, you're bored of life.
Life. Yeah.
Same, of course, if you're bored of London, you're bored of life. I really kind of, I can apply that to my experience.
I love that. Thank you. No, huge thank you to both Patricia Ruiz-Healy and Soojin Patterson. You know, thank you for sharing your insights, for really practicing what you preached at the end, you know, sharing your time. You didn't see this, but a lot of the comments in the chat were just thanking you guys and for the insights in the conversation. I really hope this conversation has given everyone who joined some valuable ideas and inspiration for building stronger, longer lasting relationships with your collectors. You know, from personal outreach to scalable tools to storytelling, trust, it's clear that loyalty is really about building it with intention and care. If you'd like to learn more about how Artlogic can support your gallery with tools that help you grow and streamline those relationships in your business, we'd love to hear from you. So please reach out. You can see it on the screen. You can reach out to hello@artlogic.net or just go to our website. But without further ado, thank you, Soojin and Patricia. It's been a pleasure. I know the audience has very much enjoyed it. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you hopefully in another panel soon.
All right. Well, thank you so
A
much.
pleasure. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.